Could the Jacksonville Jaguars trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick? It would certainly be an all-in move, and we're going to talk about it here on today's show. My name is Cullen Brown. Welcome into Jags Now, presented by Chat Sports. And before we get into it, guys, I just want to say, first off, thank you so much. We just hit over 1,500 subscribers here on the channel, and it's a credit to you guys. It's a big reason why we're able to not only launch this channel, but hopefully continue to help it grow throughout the offseason and hopefully into the NFL season, where we maybe get to a point where we're making daily videos for you guys. So we got a goal, though. My boss has kind of challenged me, said, Cullen, you're doing a great job, but can you get to 2,000 subscribers before the start of NFL free agency? Tampering period begins March 9th, although, technically free agents can sign officially on the 11th, so I'm not sure which date they were talking about, but either way, let's not even put it to chance. By March 9th, let's get to 2,000 subscribers on this channel. Hit that sub button for the best Jaguars coverage on YouTube. Jordan Schultz had the report about Minkah Fitzpatrick in terms of the latest news surrounding the Miami Dolphins safety, saying this. The Dolphins have had trade talks with teams regarding five-time Pro Bowl safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. Miami recently released 4 players earlier this week, including Arik are in the early stages of resetting the roster under a new regime. And speaking of those Dolphins roster cuts, they are as follows. Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, James Daniels, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. They're cleaning house in Miami, plain and simple. I mean, it is just something that, they're coming in with a new coach there in Miami, moving on from Mike McDaniel, going to Jeff Hafley, and they're just having a reset, right? Like where they clearly are moving off players. They want to, go through the old regime and just say, all right, who are we keeping? Who are we not keeping? They're already starting to make that process. It wouldn't shock me if they also move on from Tua Tagovailoa at some point this offseason. And among those names also includes Minkah Fitzpatrick in terms of names that they could potentially move on from. And over his last 4 seasons, he's been a really productive player. 96 tackles in two of his last 4 years, has some pass breakups, still is a ball hawk safety in the National Football League. Obviously, was involved in that big trade from the Steelers to the Miami Dolphins that include players like Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. But then, in coverage, he's not quite the same player he once was. Again, these stats are a little misleading, just given the fact that the Dolphins were having to kind of shift him around at different spots throughout the football field, which is one of the benefits of trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick. He can play in the slot. He can play both safety positions. He is truly a versatile, dynamic player, and I still think he's a really good player and somebody that can contribute to winning in the National Football League in the year of 2026. Now, when it comes to Jacksonville, we're going to kind of break down why I think there is a way that the Jaguars could trade for him, and ultimately, my thoughts in terms of making a decision should the Jaguars pull the trigger and go all in for safety like Minkah Fitzpatrick, given the season they had last season. But before we get into it, I want to ask you guys, would you trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick? Type T for trade, type P for pass. Be the GM. Be James Gladstone. Let me know what you guys think before I give my reason here in just a moment. Now, to start off with Minkah Fitzpatrick, given the fact that the Miami Dolphins have moved on from guys like Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, James Daniels, etc., they're clearly showing, hey, we're not trying to win next year. We're not trying to compete. Let's just try to, move off some of these players and see what value we can get from them. So I think Minkah Fitzpatrick as a player still could be worth, maybe a round 3 pick at his absolute highest if they were somehow to get into a bidding war. But because Miami's so just, completely showing their cards in terms of, hey, we're not trying to compete this year. We're trying to just offload. It would probably only cost a day 3 pick. Would Jacksonville send a round 4 pick, maybe one of their 2 fifth-round picks that they have currently? I would for Minkah Fitzpatrick, just in terms of the draft compensation. But people at home are wondering, okay, what would it cost in a trade to, acquire Minkah Fitzpatrick? Well, without any extension or without any adjustment to his contract, a team trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick would acquire a $15.6 million cap hit, So that obviously creates a problem for Jacksonville because, as we talked about this offseason, the Jaguars are not in the best cap situation financially. And I've seen different numbers from different sites, whether it's Spotrac, Over the Cap, what have you. Roughly, in the middle is where I'm going to be taking it. As we currently stand, they're roughly about $11 million over the salary cap. So obviously, if they were to trade a player for Minkah Fitzpatrick, add on his $15 million, you're adding roughly a $26 million cap hit in the hole if you're Jacksonville. So how could the Jaguars get cap compliant by trading for a Minkah Fitzpatrick and getting him on this roster? Well, I came up with 4 possible salary cap moves that the Jaguars could do in order to make themselves cap compliant in order to acquire a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick. And they are as follows. You cut Arik Armstead, who I think he's going to get cut in probably with a post-June 1st designation. He just is a guy that at his current $19 million cap hit this season is not going to be playing for the Jaguars, in my opinion, under that number. Maybe they restructure him. Maybe there's something else that they do, but I think he's more than likely a cut candidate. You would save a little over $14 million on that deal. You could also restructure Josh Hines-Allen. I don't think he's going anywhere. He's his team's best pass rusher. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the entire NFL. If you restructure his contract, you save roughly about a little less than $5 million. Extend Trayvon Walker. Now, depending on the number that you extend Trayvon Walker, you can get in upwards to $11.1 million. We can talk about what number we'd be comfortable giving Trayvon Walker, but ultimately I do think he's an extension candidate for Jacksonville, but that's another $11 million that you could potentially get if you extend Trayvon. And then Parker Washington, who I think at the end of the year really showed that he has the potential to be this team's full number one wide receiver for an entire season. Hasn't shown it yet, but he's certainly going to be in the mix with guys like Jacoby Myers and Brian Thomas Jr. So you extend him. I think he's earned an extension. You save just under $2 million there. So in total, right, you just created from those moves that I just showed you $32.3 million in cap savings for the Jaguars. Add that on to the $11 million that you were in the hole. You get roughly, $21 million. That's enough to bring on Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now, is that move worth it? We showed you that how it's possible. Is that move worth it? To me, in my opinion, Minkah Fitzpatrick, while he's still a heck of a player, he is entering kind of the back nine and really getting closer to hole 18 in terms of his NFL career. Not to say that he still doesn't have value in this league, but if you're Jacksonville, you have to really weigh the pros and cons of where you're at as a franchise and ultimately decide, does this Minkah Fitzpatrick move for a safety, again, a versatile one, a really productive safety, really talented safety, is enough to put this team over the top in terms of competing for a Super Bowl? And I'm not sure that Minkah Fitzpatrick is the move that does that. There's still a lot of holes in this roster that the Jaguars need to address more or less on their defensive line. And when you look at their safety depth chart from last season, I do think that Andrew Wingard's probably going to leave in free agency. I think the Jaguars have a lot of young safeties that they like, so he's probably going to move on to a team that gives him a bag. We'll see ultimately kind of where he ends up. Maybe he ends up back on the Jags on a team-friendly deal, but I think they're trying to move in a younger generation. Antonio Johnson really had a breakout year for the Jaguars this past season, had, multiple pass breakups, I think 5 interceptions, one that was taken back to the house. Eric Murray's a safety that I like. Rayon Lane, the first Naval Academy player to be drafted out of the Jaguars. He's a really good safety as well. So I think that Johnson and Murray will be the stars with Lane kind of competing in that safety role. I kind of like that pairing, to be honest. I'm not, opposed to just running that and those being my two safeties if I'm Jacksonville for the 2026 NFL season. And then there's the wild card aspect. Caleb Ransall, the former third-round pick out of Tulane, who, again, missed all last season with his injury. And I'm not really sure what his role is going to be in the secondary, but I believe in Anthony Campanelli and this coaching staff to try to put him in the best position to succeed. If you're Jacksonville, does he maybe challenge for one of those safety spots? Is he more challenging for, corner spot, in slot or on the outside? We'll wait and see. I mean, he is a supremely talented player, but at the end of the day, he hasn't taken an NFL snap yet, so you can't pencil him in anywhere. That being said, training camp with him and Lane, Johnson, and Eric Murray, I think it's going to be a really interesting battle for that safety position. We'll see ultimately where Ransall kind of slides in there, but we'll keep you updated in terms of if they do make a move or not. But I want to throw this over to you guys because I'm pretty confident in this Jaguar safety room, but you tell me. Drop a number down below in the comments section. What's your confidence level in the Jaguar safety room? Scale it from 1 to 10. 1 being, you're not really that confident. They probably need to make a move right now. Or 10, it's like, no, listen, we're good. We're rolling with our guys. No changes need to be made. We've got our dudes. That'll be it for this episode of Jags Now, presented by Chat Sports. Again, I just don't think the move for Minkah Fitzpatrick is something that Jaguars are in position to make, nor should they make, or bend backwards ultimately to make an all-in move for the 5-time Pro Bowl safety. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. Again, let me know down in the comment section below what other moves you think the Jaguars can make this offseason. And as always, Jags fans, Duval. We'll see you next time.